Welcome to the paint shop. Today we're going to be doing a paint repair on this Toyota using nothing other than this Harbor Freight purple spray gun. We'll see if we can get anything close to professional results using such an inexpensive spray gun. The first product I'm laying on this bumper here is an adhesion promoter for raw plastic bumpers. This bumper has no primer on it and it's just a raw plastic. If we don't use an adhesion promoter, the paint is not going to stick to it. So we do a little bit extra to get it ready. As far as prep work and clean, make sure there's no mold release agents on it. And then we need to put down an adhesion promoter. Normally I would be using an Iwata for this with a 1.4 tip. So the 1.4 tip in this Harbor Freight gun is a pretty good match for that. Although I'm not giving it a full trigger pull, it just seemed like it was trying to put on a little bit too much. Our adhesion promoter is dry, so the next product I'm going to be laying on is a sealer. The sealer is going to help with adhesion and also getting close to the final color of the vehicle. Again, I would probably be using my Iwata LPH 300 with a 1.4 tip if I was doing this job normally. So the 1.4 tip in this purple spray gun is pretty comparable. We want to be sure we're getting all of our edges and laying down a nice flat coat so that everything else lays flat on top of that. If you're starting off putting down sealer that has a lot of orange peel to it, your final product is going to have orange peel. So you want to be sure you're keeping each coat as smooth as possible as you go. The air pressure I'm using here is about 35 psi at the gun. That seems to work pretty well with this gun. It's a little bit higher than I would be using with the Iwata, but it seems to make this little purple gun spray pretty decent. We want to be sure we're doing the exact same thing to the little hole covers that go in the bumper as well, so they will properly match when they're installed. Everything looks pretty good. It's just time to let it sit a few minutes and flash off before we put base on. Our sealer's flash, so it's time to start putting on some base coat. Normally I would use an Iwata LS400 with a 1.3 tip for spraying base. This gun's a 1.4, so what I have to do is run the needle stop in a little bit to kind of choke off the material flow. That's not ideal. Normally what you want to do is select a nozzle size for the material you're using and then run it wide open. But in this case, I can't do that. So I'm going to have to run the needle stop in so the needle doesn't back completely off of the inside of the orifice on the back. It's going to cause a little bit of an obstruction to slow down a little bit of that flow of paint. It does work, it's just not ideal. This first coat's going on nice and wet, nice connected coat. We're getting coverage with this. I'm running about 35 psi here, but with the Iwata, I would probably be running 25, 26 psi. So this gun does have more air consumption, but honestly, it's not doing too bad. I've got the needle set to about 2.5 turns out from all the way in. So basically what I did was I ran the needle stop all the way in so the needle wouldn't move and then backed it off 2.5 rotations. Now that doesn't let the trigger travel all the way to the rear, which honestly doesn't make the gun all that comfortable to hold and pull the trigger on as I'm working. I've decided on this job to basically show you the whole thing base coating. I'm going to go ahead and leave in the drying so you can see that I'm actually using the purple gun the whole time. I will run this first drying session at full speed, and then I'm going to accelerate them after that because nobody really wants to watch paint dry. The paint we're using on this is PPG Waterborne Base Coat. It's reduced properly. I know it real well, so I can kind of take that out of the equation whether or not my base coat's reduced correctly for the gun. This is exactly the reduction I would use in my Iwatas. I know it flows great through them, so I just need to figure out what settings on the gun are going to work best for this reduction. And you'll probably see me fidget with the gun a little bit here and there with turning in the needle a little bit more, out a little bit more, adjusting my air pressure, especially when I move to clear coat. Because as I said, I'm using the same gun throughout the entire process. Normally what I would do is I would have 3 different guns that I would use for this job. I would use a sealer gun to put on the sealer and the adhesion promoter. Then I'd switch to another gun for the base coat. And I would use a WS400 Iwata for the clear coat. And each one of those guns is properly set up for the material I'm spraying. So I don't have to worry about it. I can just grab the gun and use the material. But since all those products have different viscosities, I'm having to adjust this one gun a little bit here and there so that it sprays properly with each one. If it's not set correctly, you're going to end up with excessive orange peel or some dry areas. So that's why I spent a little bit of time getting each one set up. And since this is really the first time I've used the gun, I'm kind of having to experiment a little bit and then just note the changes I'm making to it so I can replicate it in the future. The second coat of base goes on just a little bit drier than the first. The first was mainly just getting coverage of the color, which is Toyota 218. It's a black that has just a little bit of blue pearl to it. You really don't see the pearl inside, but when it gets out in the sun, you see some pop to it. The reason that each coat goes on a little bit drier than the first one is to start controlling the pearls in it and the metallics. There's really no metallic to speak of in this color, just a couple drops. And the pearl's honestly fairly easy to control. So we could probably put the coats on a little bit wetter without much trouble, but I typically try to spray everything the same way, just out of, force of habit. This third coat's going on just a little bit drier than the second, and it's probably about 50% wet. Again, this is helping with coverage, but more than anything, we're just starting to make sure that the color's correct when it's done. We don't have any blotchy areas. We don't have any striped areas, which is what you don't want to see. Probably wouldn't be a trouble with this color, but it's just good practice to do each job the same to make sure that even though it's an easier color, you don't have any issues. One of the things I wanted to show with this video was what it is you can do with a gun like this. I mean, this is a $20 gun. I would typically be using close to $2,000 worth of Iwatas to spray this gun. And, for somebody getting into this line of work or wanting to do their own vehicle, that's really not an option. So I wanted to show if it's even possible to take a cheap gun like this and to do the job. Time for one final coat of base. With this color, it's probably not even necessary to do this, but I've got a little bit of color left over, so we're going to go ahead and put on this orientation coat. A coat going on this dry would be absolutely necessary with tricky colors like a silver or a champagne color. With a color like this, probably wouldn't need it. But like I said, I've got color left over. There's no sense in throwing it away. May as well put it on the car and make absolute certain that we have the color correct and we have proper coverage. This coat is going on fairly dry. I mean, it goes on almost looking like frost. You don't really see any moisture to it when it goes on correctly. There it is. Base coat put on using only the Harbor Freight purple spray gun. We'll get ready to mix some clear coat up and see what we end up with. Our base coat's dry. We're going to give it a quick tack, obviously at accelerated speed, blow it off, and get ready to put down some clear. As I started to spray this, I used the exact same gun settings as I did with the base coat because the clear gun I would use has a 1-3 coat tip as well. I quickly realized I didn't like the way it was spraying. Gave it a little bit more air pressure. I ended up at about 40 to 42 psi to spray this clear. And I backed the needle up just a little bit more. Whereas I was running about 2.5 rotations out with the base coat. As I started spraying clear on the bumper, I noticed it had some excessive orange peel to it. So I increased my air pressure and turned down the paint volume a little bit. What I ended up spraying here at the time I kind of got it dialed in was about 2.25 turns out for the clear coat. Again, it's not really the way you want to set up a gun using the needle stop to choke off the flow, but that's what's available with this gun, so I have to make do. This first coat of clear goes on pretty much the way you want it to look. If you have excessive orange peel in this first one, you're not really going to get it to flow out in the second one. So you want to try to lay it on pretty slick and not too much so that you cause runs. Here I'm just trying to dial the clear in a little bit better. Just totally wasn't happy with the way it was spraying on that first coat, but it did got the job done. All right, first coat is flashed off. Time for our second coat. And as you can see, the clear that's already there does have a nice depth to it. It does look pretty smooth, but I think this is the point that I had the gun turned down to about 2.25 turns. So I was a lot happier with the way the gun was spraying here. Again, I'm going to record these settings. I might fine tune them a little bit more in the future, but this is going to be my starting point in the future when I start spraying these particular materials through this gun. Because I'd like to spray some more colors with this gun, some tricky colors, to see just how well it does. Spray some high metallics, maybe even spray a 3-stage pearl to see just what the gun's capable of. As I'm sure you can probably see already, this gun is laying out a finished product that most people would be pretty happy with. I think anybody that was learning how to paint would be absolutely tickled with this paint job. And honestly, it's a little bit more work to use it, but the finished product is turning out pretty much identical to a job done with high-end guns. Final coat on the fender. And again, we're just going to lay this thing on just the way we want the clear to look. It's not going to move around a whole lot once it's on. So if we put on excessive orange peel, it's going to have excessive orange peel. If we put it on too dry, it's going to be too dry. We're going to put it on just the way we want it to look. And again, it's got nice depth to it. Real nice depth. Orange peel looks real good. You know, you're going to hear some people say that you want to lay it out with absolutely no orange peel. That's not necessarily the case. Just like matching the color, we want to match the orange peel to the surrounding panels. If the surrounding panels have orange peel, the panel you're painting should have similar orange peel. Otherwise, it just screams that something's been repaired on it. There it is. The entire job done with the Harbor Freight purple spray gun. Absolutely capable of putting out a professional job. It's not going to last as well as a good gun. And honestly, it was a little bit more work to do it, but it's definitely doable. I would prefer to have maybe 3 of these different guns, each one set up with correct settings for the material. But the color looks good. The clear looks good. Definitely a doable job. I really hope you enjoyed watching. And if you'd like, subscribe, stick around. I'm going to try this gun on some different tricky colors and see what we can do. I'm not sure I'd want to do it on a complete, just due to the ergonomics of the gun. But for small jobs, it's definitely doable. I hope you learned something today. See you next time in the paint shop.